What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome to the CEO Podcast. I am Vince Moiso. I am here with my partner Scott DeLong as always, and we've got a special guest today, James Stone. And we are on site down in Escondido today at Stone and Glass, and James was gracious enough to host us today. We got to learn how to blow glass. It was an amazing experience, and we got to do our own pieces. I came down with my daughter. Scott brought his wife and son, and it was a cool experience. I had probably just as much fun watching everybody else as I did just experiencing it myself. And obviously being in the glass business and being in the glass industry and seeing it as often as I have, this is my first time actually blowing glass. So it was a pretty killer experience. And the topic that we want to focus on today is an interesting one for me, and I see it obviously within the business that I'm in, and I'm so lucky that I get outreach with guys like this and shops like this with amazing things, and I get to see this around the country, which is pretty incredible. And what I also see and experience is that artists like yourself that have actually taken what they love to do and what they're incredibly passionate about doing and turn it into a business. Now, a lot of people can do that, but how do you do it successfully, and how do you make money, and all of those?
Well, let's take a couple steps behind that, because I think you said the right word, artist. People all the time get in businesses because they have a passion for it, and that's great, and they make it. But an artist thinks different than a business person generally,
sure.
Right? The right brain, left brain. Yeah. We think differently.
Yeah.
And so that to me is really interesting, taking it from the passion business to the artist running a passion and making it a business.
Yeah.
3 steps, not just 2.
James, why don't you take a few minutes right now for our listeners, introduce yourself, give a little bit of background, how you got into this, and why you love doing it, how long you've been around, all the good stuff that you think our listeners would want to hear about what you got going on.
Okay, so I'm James Stone. I'm a professional glassblower. I have had a wonderful, long history of being involved in the glass trades. I started out as a stained glass artist in 1974. Don't calculate my age. And I worked...
Hey, our second guest is older than me. I'm happy now. This is good.
And I worked my way through the 5 major disciplines of glass blowing. And I actually, for most of my career, was a prop maker. I worked in film and television, and I worked my way to the top of that career and ended my career as a producer-director for television. And when I turned 50, I lost my job, and I could not find a job comparable to my experience in San Diego, and I just could not bring myself to move to Los Angeles, even though I had job offers, but it meant moving to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So I had been a hobbyist glassblower at that point for 17 years, and a dear friend of mine said to me, "Why don't you do it professionally? You're really good at it." And
famous last words.
Famous
right?
last words.
Yep.
And I never took him seriously, but I was sitting around collecting my package, and you corporate guys know what a package is. I was collecting my package, and I was watching daytime television. I was watching Rosie O'Donnell, and she was interviewing my childhood heartthrob, Cher. And she said to Cher, "Do you have any advice for young people?" And Cher said, "I do. Do everything you want to do when you're young, because it doesn't get any easier when you get old." And I swear this is true. It was like she had hit me in the head with a sledgehammer. I sat up and thought, "Oh my God, I'm 50. I'm still young."
Still young at 50.
I jumped up off my couch, drove over to the Bernardo Winery. I had never even visited the Bernardo Winery. I drove over to the Bernardo Winery and hunted down the owner, and he happened to be an Italian. and said to him, "What do you think about having a glassblowing studio here?" And after a few moments of long silence, he said, "I think it'd be a good idea." And we worked out a deal. Within 2 hours of hearing Cher say that, he and I worked out a deal on a handshake. And I was at the Bernardo Winery on a handshake for 8 years, and then I was there for another 6 after he passed away.
Wait a minute. The handshake thing I'm questioning, because you made me sign a document that if I burnt myself, it's not your fault. So why can we do a handshake?
There's a story there if you want to hear it.
Wait, I want to know, is Cher your heartthrob too, Scott?
Cher was a little, no.
She's too old for you.
Sonny was okay, but Cher,
So yeah, and that's how I began in 2001. And even though I'd worked in business, and I've been the director of sales for major businesses and companies, when I worked in the online internet business, I was closing $1 million deals.
So here's the distinction, right, that I'm hearing is you had a business background, so you already had a pretty distinguished career. And I would say if you were working in LA and you were working in the television industry at that time, I mean, it's a pretty high-powered career, right?
So I'm going to tell you something else I noticed about James, and I've seen him here in his shop and then also down at an art show down in Dana Point a week or so ago, is that when you go to art shows, people sit on their chairs and they sit behind and they hope you admire their stuff.
Yeah.
This guy engages people.
Yeah.
Like, so when he said sales background,
Yeah.
I get it. Just this morning,
Yep.
we were talking, getting ready for our class. Customers came walking in. I was chopped liver at that point. He turned on me and went to them and engaged them in a conversation.
Well, you're already sold, man.
Like a salesman.
You were already sold.
I'd already signed the paper, right?
They actually picked up a big piece. I would have liked to have sold it to them.
Yeah.
So here's what I say, no matter what business you're in, business is business. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my boss when I was in the internet business. And he said to me one day, in order to be successful, you have to know where every dime is coming from and where every dime is going. You have to follow the money. And I will say that, yes, I love being an artist, and yes, I love working only when I want to work. And I love creating stuff, whether
Yeah.
people buy it or not.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I have a $4,000 a month propane bill.
Yeah.
I have to make and sell enough stuff
Yeah.
to pay my propane bill and my rent and my insurance and my employees and it just goes on and on before I get any money. So I've got to be very aware of how much I'm spending,
Where the money's going.
what I'm making, who's
Yeah.
buying it, when is that money coming in? Because sometimes you do a project and you think you're getting paid at the end and things happen and it's months before you get paid,
So
or years.
let me alter your mentor's advice. Where every dime comes in and where every 5 or 6 cents goes out.
We hope.
We get to keep 4 of them.
We
right?
hope.
I want to keep 4 or 5 of those cents.
We hope.
But
We hope.
It's great advice, though.
And if you're as an entrepreneur, no matter what you're doing, restaurant, making clothes, anything you're doing as an entrepreneur, if you don't have the skills to follow the money, you either have to be married to somebody who can,
Find someone again.
or you need to hire somebody,
That's right.
and they have to be trustworthy, and you have to let them do what
Yeah,
they
get
do.
help. You
So go
gotta
to that
get
marriage
fucking
thing for a
help.
second, because I've heard you say a couple times about talking about your wife and her marketing skill set. And you don't even get involved in that. You make pretty designs, pretty things, and then let her take over and do that portion, because that's what she's good at.
Well, she does a whole lot more than that. Oh my God. Here in Escondido, across the street there, we have a homeless encampment.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell people if it wasn't for Carol, my wife, I'd be sleeping in the homeless encampment. And in the glass trades, we're very cognizant of something called the COE. Vince, can you explain to us what a COE is?
I can. It's the coefficient of expansion of the glass, which is really, really important because it is what is required to test compatibility from one glass to the next. So your ability to use all these various colors and various types of glasses, they don't all work together because of COE.
Okay, so at Stone and Glass, I'm very aware of COE, but COE stands for Chief of Everything.
There you go.
And quite honestly, I don't want anything to happen that Carol, at the very least, is aware of, but I want her approval, and we have to be in agreement. And we meet every week to talk about, what did I finish last week? What do I need to get done this week? What materials do I need to order?
Yeah.
What's in the pipeline? And as an artist, most artists have never heard of the pipeline.
Right.
But we need to know what's in the pipeline, not the next week. We need to know what's in the pipeline 60, 90, 180 days out.
Well, and frankly, if you buy, so you have to buy raw materials. So, example, you buy raw material goods from us, the
I
glass
do.
that you're going to use,
I do.
right? Thank you for that. But the
I
fact
buy,
is,
and I buy those materials from you because you're the best.
oh, thank you. Well, here's what I'm getting at, though. You have to track and follow that. Like, you can't just buy a boatload of glass, right? Because then you're not making any money. Because at some point, the carrying cost of that inventory is too high, and you're not making any money.
Yep.
So even like, I know small companies will chase the deal and buy in massive volume, but it's volume that they don't need, and they get stuck on that. Oh well, I bought it at this square foot price, or I bought it by the pound, or whatever it was, and I got this volume discount. The reality is that no, you have to buy what you need when you need it,
Absolutely.
and make sure you're tracking at that level too. So one of the things, because I want to step back on a couple things that you said too, and one of the things that caught me was, well, one, you had a mentor. You mentioned about having a mentor as you came into this. Two, you have the passion around what you do, and the third that I heard Scott actually call out was, you actually go get the people, you engage people, you go and get sales. Frankly speaking, let's just talk about our relationship. You made that happen. We didn't make that happen. You made that happen.
That's because you had something I needed.
Well, great, but it's such a perfect example of, if you want something, you got to ask for it. You asked for it,
Absolutely.
and you got it.
Absolutely.
And so, no surprise that you got it. But I think I watch so many artists struggle in business because they don't do some of those just really basic things. They don't go engage. They don't go get what they want. They don't ask.
They don't know what they want.
Right.
They play in their studios and they have a good time, but they don't go, okay, I want to make a living, so I have to be very cognizant of the marketplace.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you just a very funny story about that. So one of my mentors, and I actually have had many mentors, is a very famous glass artist named Paul Stanker. You can look him up, Paul Stanker, Stankard. He makes tiny little paperweights, about this big. They sell for $30,000. And when I when I decided to go into business, and I went to him for advice, and he's given me a lot of advice over the years. One of the things he said to me was, you have to take everything to the show, because you never know who's going to want what, and you have to engage everyone.
Yeah.
And the other thing he said, it's the story that sells the piece.
Oh, no doubt.
It's not the piece; it's the story that sells the piece.
Going down to Sawdust Festival, a lot of beautiful things down there. You look and I go there to drink beer and listen to music, but the pieces that we have from the Sawdust Festival is because the guy got out from behind that seat and engaged with my wife and told the story about that piece.
Yep.
They're all beautiful.
Yep.
This one had a story behind it. We ended up buying it.
And you absorbed that story, and that became part of who you are. And the piece, interestingly enough, the piece of art is an artifact of that story.
Well, not to mention the story that comes from the whole purchase. You just told it, right? It's like we were at the Sawdust Festival, and we met this guy, and here's the background on it. And so, when you have that piece, so the purchasing side of it, there's an emotional connection to it immediately. And I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, as a business guy, you don't think I tell my salespeople that story?
Oh, yeah.
And the other story that engaged things that I wasn't planning on buying that we bought? Yeah. And so many salespeople aren't doing that.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about sales, and when I engage with those people, I don't know if you noticed, I ask them qualifying questions, and I listen to their answer.
Yeah.
Because here's what I know about sales. If you listen long enough, every customer will tell you everything you need to know to close that sale.
they will fill the dead space. Most salespeople are afraid of dead air. They try to fill it themselves with another story, with whatever. But allowing the buyer to talk, they get just as uncomfortable with the silence as you do.
Yeah.
They will open their mouth and tell you just what you're saying. They will tell you exactly what they want.
I can't tell you how many times, my customers include my students. These guys were students.
Yeah.
I've taught the glassblowing experience to well in excess of 15,000 students. And I always introduce myself and I get my students to tell me about themselves, what their experience is, what they do, how many kids they got, where do they live, And I can't tell you how many times listening to my students, I hear something which I go, oh, I need some of that, and then I become their customers.
Well, that's how we got into this class. Actually, we came down to get you to build a piece for us from Vince's recommendation, to build a piece for us, a lampshade, a couple of lampshades that we needed, and in front of my wife, and I should hit you, but in front of my wife, you said something about, oh, I teach classes on Saturdays. You should come. Guess what? Here we are. And then we invited our son and made an event out of it.
Yeah,
right?
no question.
Okay, so now I'm getting ready for a very large presentation tomorrow to UCSD, and part of my presentation is about the chancellor of UCSD is coming here for a presentation and a glassblowing lesson. And all I can say is he took the bait. The same as you took the bait. He took the bait.
No, I took the wife. The wife took the bait.
Oh,
just saying.
Hey, listen, if you've ever seen it, Simon Sinek, if you know who Simon Sinek is, has the most watched TED Talk, and it's about why, right? Start with why. And he has a book called Start with Why. And he taught, this is exactly what he says. He says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Oh,
and so what he's telling, but really what he's saying is what you guys are saying, which is the story is as important as anything else. And I would add to that, it's a great TED Talk, 15 minutes. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't watched it, watch it. But I would add to that, they're buying you as much as they're buying anything else.
Yeah.
And so that is equally important. And I think when you're an artist, it is one of the most important things. But I find it funny, you brought up marketing, and I do find it funny in some of those businesses, the retail businesses and the artists' businesses, that they're not really pushing themselves as part of the story. They create this brand, but they're forgetting the piece that's probably, arguably, the most important, which is them.
Okay, so I know that we got a lot of other things we want to talk about. I just want to add this one thing about that. So a lot of artists don't realize that it's the performance. It's not the object. It's not the artifact. So very early when I started 22 years ago, I realized that it wasn't just about owning a piece of glass. It was about people watching me make it and making it exciting for them, creating a class and making it enjoyable for them.
Yeah.
It's about the experience of it more than anything else, and the experience has got to be an number one performance. You got to be as good as any performers you see on television or in movies. That's how good your performance is. So you said something, Vince said something about the why. And I think the why is very important. And I think that whatever you do, whatever your job is, if you're not passionate about it, you're pretty much wasting your time.
Well, and you can choose to be passionate about it in whatever it is you're doing. So I want to get back to this part of one of the questions I was asking as we were doing the introduction part, which is okay, great. So what we discovered is you had a business background that gave you a little bit of an edge, as an artist is starting into this. You knew what to do. You knew how to build it. Then you were smart enough to bring your wife into the business. So you've got somebody that obviously complements you in a way that enhances the business model. So knowing what to buy, when to buy it, knowing how much to spend, following the money, as you said. That's great. So I kind of want to know what advice do you have, straight up advice for those artists that haven't made the jump to creating their own business, and those that are already in their own business but struggling to really make it profitable.
You need a whole separate podcast on that. So
give it. I get that. We joke about that all the time because we'll have conversations with guests. We'll have our own conversations.
We can talk.
We'll
forever.
get into something and we're like, yeah, that's a whole topic in and of itself. That being said, so what I'm looking for, 2-3 nuggets. Like in other words, stop doing this and start doing this today.
Well, the first thing I'd say is this: is going back to the passion. You have to do what you enjoy. If you do what you enjoy, and do it and do it and do it, you get good. And Henson said, he was the guy. Jim Henson was the guy who did the Muppets. He wrote a very interesting biography, and he said it's the magic of number of 10,000. Anytime you do something 10,000 times, you're an expert. So I would say is become an expert in what you're passionate about. Do it until you're really good at it. Know your market, which is the hardest thing. When people ask me to describe my market, I'm like, well, there's this market and there's this market and this market. You got to know your market, and then you have to build on top of where your success is. So you got to get focused on one thing that you can be successful with, and as you develop success and it becomes self-sustaining, then you can expand that. Would you say that's good advice?
Well, I was laughing because Bruce Lee has one of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee, and he's got a ton. But he said, I'm not afraid of the man who has done 10,000 different kicks. I'm afraid of the man who's done one kick 10,000 times.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. Yeah. So that's one kernel that I'd share with you.
Actually, I saw that as two kernels.
Oh, you did?
The first
Okay.
portion, and it's advice that I give to my kids or any young people: find something that you love. When you love it, you'll get good at it. When you get good at it, then they'll pay you for it. So stop chasing the dollars up front, right? Get good at your craft, and you're only going to if you can enjoy that. That was the first one that I heard. Then the second piece that I heard is understand your market and get that thing and go do that thing for those people. The market is the people that are out there buying this for whatever their reason is. Find out what that reason is, and go and attack at that point.
You got to know who you're selling to, by the way. So
Absolutely.
I don't care if you're an artist, a business person, whatever it is. If you're manufacturing a widget or if you're creating something as beautiful as what's in this studio, you do have to know who the market is. So you mentioned UCSD. So I think one thing that I appreciate about you is and understand who you're selling to and the type of things that are going to enhance who you're selling to, what you're going after, that target market, and then you go after it, right? So I'd say, I call that being intentional. So what I'd say is that you're intentional about it. But, again, so for any artist out there that's running a business already or looking at running it, you have to be intentional about what you're doing and who you're selling to. So to me, I love the advice that you gave, but you know what? Yes, be passionate. I'm in agreement of what the advice that you gave, and it's not enough.
Well,
it's not enough to be passionate. It's not enough to be really good at what you do, and it's not enough just to be focused. So taking it to a whole other level, like we just said, is going downstream, understanding who that target market is, and then ultimately, you might not love to do the business stuff, but you gotta fucking do it. Sorry. Sometimes we use that when it's appropriate,
okay.
and I'd call that an appropriate moment.
Okay.
But it's like,
allowed to drop an F-bomb at the right spot.
you just have to do it, guys. I mean, no one, a lot of people don't love. I actually love finance. I've enjoyed it, but it's not something. I hated math. Hated math until I really understood that I was an entrepreneur, and once I really dug into business, I understood it's the lifeblood of a business. I learned to love it, and I do love it. Not everybody does. In fact, most business owners hate it, and most business owners hate the management and the dealing with employees and HR and all that other. It's like, but you got to do it.
You got to stop using that word hate. Hate's not a good word.
You got to do it.
They're uncomfortable with it. It's not that they hate it; they're uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, better way to describe it. I agree.
And, I just want to point out that when I began, I had one revenue stream, one and one only revenue stream, and it wasn't enough to support my business. And I had to figure out another revenue stream. And I had to try different revenue streams until I got to ones that actually produced a profit. And now we have 5 different revenue streams, and depending on what's going on with our customers and in society, sometimes one revenue stream gets smaller and we have to focus on another one that we can make larger. So as an example, when COVID hit, we were closed for 71 days. Cash flow gone. And I was very lucky. My older daughter, who's just a little bit younger than you, said, you got to do a subscription service, Dad.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of a glass subscription service, even though I know the guys at Glassy Babies, but it just didn't occur to me, subscription service.
Yeah.
And I finally said, we'll give it a try. And the subscription service, the Collectors Club, Glass of the Month Club, has turned into a significant anchor revenue stream for us. And we have people who now have collected our Glass of the Month for 24 months and continue to buy. So that was one revenue stream. And then, of course, the main revenue stream, classes are a great revenue stream for us. We've been teaching classes longer than any studio in Southern California, so we have we're very well known. But doing custom commission work, like Scott came in and wanted a special lighting fixture done. And so we have to know how to market to each one of those different revenue streams.
Yeah.
You can't have one thing and market one thing and hope that they're going to find you. You'll never be successful. You have to identify that market, and you have to speak in a language that that market will understand.
And be able to pivot when you see the writing on the
Yes,
wall. Now,
yes.
we didn't see the writing on the wall with COVID. You had to pivot after the fact. I get that.
Yeah.
But looking for leading indicators instead of lagging indicators to say, this is starting to change a little bit, and I wonder why.
Yep.
What are my customers saying? Well, these
Exactly.
customers look different than the ones that came in last week. Let's talk about those folks as well. Another reason to engage with the customers.
Absolutely.
Finding out what they want, what's interesting them, and that's where these pivots happen in advance, as opposed to the COVID type pivots where we had to.
Well, yeah,
Sure.
I don't think we had much of a choice. It's just
No, if you wanted to eat
one
next
day we
week.
were doing tons of business, the next day
Yeah.
we were closed.
No, the fact is you adapted, and
Yeah.
and I think adapting as a business is equally important. Well, again,
How many artists didn't, though? That's the question.
Right.
So
Oh,
we're
my
talking to the
God.
artist community right now.
There you go.
They just shut down and they said, "What do I do?"
What do I do?
I can
What do?
I can actually give you some numbers. So here in San Diego County, before COVID, there were approximately 24 glassblowing studios in San Diego County. There's now 5 of us.
Yeah, that's it. And I think a lot of industries felt that. So we're coming up on time here, and so I want to be respectful of that, because I do think this is a topic
That happens a lot to us.
we could keep talking about for a long time. So,
Clearly, we're passionate
yeah.
about this topic.
Well, last word. What do you got? Either one of you guys. Last word.
So I'll go with what I think is that I really like the fact, the thought process, and the reason I wanted you to come on here is to talk about that passion to business, fine, but artist to passion to business. Sometimes you've got to, if you want to create a business out of this, can't just be thinking right brain all the time. You've got to get some left brain too.
Yeah.
Whether that's outside, wife, partner, somebody else that might come in, or being able to shift those gears as well.
Yep.
Because art on its own doesn't make money. Most artists starve. So thinking about bringing in, the left brain thought process as well, if you want to make it a business.
Yep.
So that's my nugget.
So my last nugget is this: come take a glassblowing lesson. Let you come and experience what it's like to touch hot glass at 2,350 degrees, and join my email list. And sometime in the next 6 months, you can buy my memoir, 265,000 words, called "The Glass Thread: One Artist's Lonely Journey." And there's lots and lots of kernels of wisdom in that book, even though I have to say so myself.
Well, where else can they find you? stoneandglass.com.
Yeah. Stoneandglass.com is the best place to find us. Or just Google glassblowing in San Diego, and we come up 80 million times.
And if you have trouble with that, just get in touch with Vince or I, and we'll get you in touch with James as well. So There's not a limited number of ways to get in touch with this man.
Yeah, no, you can email us at scottandvince@gmail.com. You can check us out at theceopodcast.net. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love for you to follow us, and we'd love for you to actually comment on what you see there. And then you can listen on any of the normal podcast channels. Well, James, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today very, very much. I really appreciate the glass blowing experience that we got as well. And that was actually a very special thing for me to do with my daughter today.
That was great.
So thank you. I'm very thankful for that as well. So, as always, guys, until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.